Good evening, keepers of the cash. GaryB, the casual comic guy here. And tonight on In the Hot Seat with the Usual Suspects, we are joined by Karla Nappi, the writer and creator of Duplicant. And we brought some special guest hosts with us as well. We have Jenn from Comics Will Break Your Heart and SuperJessi to join me and Slot It Up. So we're going to get rolling here and get going. So as we start, Karla, why don't you just give us a quick overview of what people can expect from your title?
So Duplicant is a thriller, and it's set in the future during a pandemic of organ failure, and it focuses on the scientist that's created a way to do duplicate organs. He 3D prints them, and the cost of them is so high that you're thrown into indentured servitude. You're just sold off to the highest bidder. You don't have any say in how this happens, and you end up doing work that you would never do in a million years. And because human organs are illegal, there's also this illegal human organ trade that's been started up, and it's run by Matt's former mentor, who's become a religious fanatic.
Right, and that's the good thing about this story too. Is one thing that I really connected with is there's a real underlying tone of menace running throughout this story.
Yeah, there definitely is. It's funny because when Vince Hernandez came on as my editor in issue 1, his big comment was, you need to add some humor into this. Because he's like, it's so dark. He's like, you have to have some moments of humor. So that's what I always try to have, like, some moments of humor in each issue. And there's the moment in issue 1 where the guy sneezes and the quarantine officer is like trying to take him away. That was supposed to be humorous, but then we ended up in a real pandemic, and now it reads a little more real life than it was supposed to.
Definitely hits home right now with today's time.
Yeah.
Especially with them having the mask on and stuff in the art and stuff. Yeah.
I definitely had to read it more than once. Because of that, I had to read it maybe outside of the perspective that there is a real life pandemic going on. Right. So did you write it before or after, before everything kind of started happening?
Yeah, so it was a pilot idea originally, and I came up with the pilot in 2013, 2014. And then I took a comic book writing class at Meltdown Comics in West Hollywood, which is sadly shuttered. And that's where I learned how to write comic books. And so I adapted Duplicate into Duplicant, the comic book series. So the first issue was probably done by 2016.
So how did it end up over at Second Sight Publishing? Where did that connection get made?
It was totally random. I was just on a Sunday doing some work upstairs while my husband was watching our son. And I saw an article on Bleeding Cool about this new publisher that was looking for submissions. And so I put together a package really quick and emailed it over to them. And within 15 minutes, my phone started to ring. And it was Spike, the editor-in-chief, saying, we love this book and we want to bring it on. And then the next thing I know, I'm talking to Marcus, I'm talking to Bradley. Yeah, they signed me very, very quickly. And then we were lucky to get into previews towards the end of this year, which changed the distribution from them self-distributing through going through Diamonds instead.
Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, too, in previews, they have you listed as a 3-issue miniseries. That's not correct. Right?
No, yeah. So the first story arc is 5 issues. And then the next story arc after that will be 4 or 5 issues.
Awesome. Yeah. We were talking, it was going to be hard to wrap up in this last issue if it had been a 3-issue miniseries. So
yeah, that would have been a lot to try to jam into one book. It would have been its own little graphic novel.
Especially since we were so invested, and then the ending just leaves you wanting that next arc. You know, just where it leads. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that's watching or who hasn't read the book.
I try to end every issue on a cliffhanger. That's from my film and TV days, like a holdover for me.
Well, the first issue definitely was, man, because you really connect with Pam.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
As a character. And then, here's this accomplished, well-studied, heading to the top of whatever she's doing, and everything is halted and taken away from her by the government and her lung failure.
Yeah, she's about
all
to
of a
take
sudden
the bar.
now she's more viewed as property than a human.
Exactly.
And it really sets up a lot of social issues just in one issue.
Yeah, I definitely tried to hit on a bunch of different topics, and I'm just trying to do justice to everything. And Pamela is a character that continues throughout the entire series in some way, shape, or form. Because I know, if people have read issue 1 and they thought she was done per se, she's not. She definitely sticks with the series going forward. But she's also your entry into the series to help you understand how the world works.
And Matt's primary motivation.
Yeah, well, exactly. So Matt tried to do the duplicant organs as a way to, there's something in issue 2 that I don't want to give away that kind of like explains his motivation with doing the duplicate organs and creating them. And he's had his head so focused on, okay, now I've done these duplicate organs, let me get a vaccine, because that's going to be obviously the next best thing, because it would be cheaper. People aren't going to be sold into indentured servitude. If he can get this vaccine, you'll see in issue 1, he keeps hitting a wall with trying to get that done. And so he's not paying as close of attention as he should. Like, he's definitely not happy that his tech is being used in this way, and he's fighting it, but he's probably not paying as close of attention to the problems that are happening, like what happens with Pamela and how the person that she gets sold off to is not treating her the way you would want anyone to be treated. And so that's kind of an eye-opener to him as well, that he needs to sort of open his eyes and stop having this tunnel vision.
Yeah, his moral compass is pulling in that way.
Yeah, that was a part of the book that really affected me reading it too. It's just his total disregard to treat her like a human being. Like, it really upsets you, and it's supposed to. And you're like, he doesn't even take the time to know her value and what she's worth as a person and her knowledge, and
Oh, you mean the guy that buys her?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he doesn't care.
I'm trying to speak and not give away for people who haven't read it.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to do it broad term, but there is just, it's a good play on stuff today where the people with the power are treating people without the power like they're nothing, like they have no human base value. And this story really you connect to it in a lot of different ways, and it worked on a lot of levels, which I really appreciated.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely was juggling a bunch of different things. So it's trying to make sure that I keep everything moving forward with each issue and don't drop anything, and try to make sure I flesh out every character so you feel like you really get to know them and you feel intimately connected to them in some way.
Another thing that felt very real to me because of this, thinking about the link between medical debt is a real thing, and something like 2/3 of Americans do declare bankruptcy due to medical debt. Was that kind of one of the plot points, or was that because part of this story is where people can I don't know if I'm giving too much away. People can basically buy your debt and then ultimately buy you. So where did that thought process come in?
Well, there were 2 inspirations for that. So Repo, the Genetic Opera, was a big inspiration.
I love that movie. I own it. I have it here.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I saw it in this, tiny little Manhattan theater the weekend it came out. And so that was a huge influence as far as, in Repo, the Genetic Opera, they repo your organ back if you don't pay off the debt. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to kind of do my own twist on it, but also, hold on, I just got something that popped up on my screen, sorry. But the other thing was, I'm someone who's been without health insurance for extended periods of time in my life. Even with my jobs, I worked freelance in film and TV, and for years and years, I didn't have insurance. It was a situation where I had insurance on my pets, but I didn't have insurance for myself. And then I found myself in this situation where I got diagnosed with a couple of long-term issues that I'm still dealing with, and I didn't have insurance. And so I was juggling multiple jobs to have to pay for this stuff. And then I got insurance through the Freelancers Union in New York. And then they stopped covering people in New Jersey, right after I got it. And I was in New Jersey working in New York. So it was I definitely felt that pressure, and I needed surgery and I couldn't afford surgery. So I never got the surgery because it was I was how am I supposed to, there's no way I can't do this. So that was always a big influence, because it's like you never know if you're going to get insurance on a lot of your jobs, and you can't even take care of your basic health needs, which can help prevent more expensive problems down the road. Like, it boggles my mind that your hearing aids are not covered as something for people, and like glasses and your teeth. None of that is ever covered, even when you have insurance. So yeah, it's like, I need new glasses so I can drive.
Right. And it's nuts too. And the other topic in this is with big business and how they can circumvent the laws and ethics for their bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. That was a big motivating factor for me too with the story, was because it just feels like big business is taking over some aspects of how our lives are run. I definitely feel like government's trying to manhandle it back in some ways, but with the way politics are, I don't really know how that's all going to go down. But, I worked for these big companies in film and TV, like Disney and Universal and NBC, and they just they don't protect their workers on their shows, because what happens when you're on a TV show is you're under like the little production companies they make for each TV show. And so they can be like, well, you're not technically an employee of the big company. So then that's how they get away with not providing benefits for the people who are union. So it's like, and those are the people, those are the people that work the longest, like the PAs on set, they're working like crazy long hours and they don't get benefits, and they're basically running on empty constantly.
Man,
so yeah.
That's rough. So how did you get hooked up with the artist Mariana Strachowska?
Ryland Grant, who I met during the class that I took at Meltdown Comics. He does Aberrant and Banjax, and he just had a couple of successful Kickstarters. And he knew this guy named Carol, who's out of Poland, who had a bunch of artists that he was friendly with. And so he hooked me up with Mariana, who I believe was just out of art school when she came on to do issue 1.
And the reason I asked too is the pencils are great. Like the faces convey all the emotion that the words are there. And sometimes you get that disconnect where the art isn't matching the writing.
Yeah.
And I'm really big on the art and the writing being married. And this tells your story beautifully with the way that she depicts the characters and the faces. And it, just another aspect that endears you to the characters.
Yeah, the art's pretty grim. It matches the story really well.
Well, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, yep. You froze for a second.
Oh, okay.
You're back.
I saw the little spinning wheel. Yeah, so I had her do a test page of the page in the book that I think you guys will know is like a critical page for Pamela that changes everything for her. And it's a very emotional page. It's the one where like she's in the shower afterwards.
Yep.
Right. So that was the test page, because I was like, if she can nail this page, she can do the issue, because it's not an action heavy issue. You really need to get the faces and the body language right. And so when she nailed that page, I was like, she's it, because that's what I needed. And I needed someone who could, sometimes I'll like write like a whole paragraph of whatever I want the internal dialogue in the character's head to be. So she has a better sense of how to emote, what she needs to emote on their face when she's drawing it.
Yeah, she nailed that picture. She nailed the whole story.
Yeah.
Yeah, the conveyance of emotion is amazing.
Yeah, she's been amazing. Or like that picture in the beginning when the family's holding their son, I was like, she just nailed it.
Well, yeah, you can see the grief.
Mm-hmm. You can feel it. It's like you can just feel it when you're looking at it.
Yeah, even in issue 2 with the doctor.
Yes.
You can see the whole like, crap, I messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I messed up big. You can see
I messed up big. Yep, exactly. Yeah. I wanted to make sure that people felt in issue 2, like Matt is really taking everything to heart, and he's like, I gotta fix this and I gotta do it fast.
Well, he's a decent human being with his brains and his skills being misused. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the great part about him is he's the anchor to humanity in this story.
Yeah.
With all the menace and all the threat going on, and all the conspiracies and leading up to not really knowing if what's happening is happening and then confirming what's happening. And he is a good, solid anchor.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. He's probably my hardest character. That's like one of the things I always feel like I have a hard time with is I can get my side characters really quickly. Like, oh, they're easy to get after a certain point in the structure, but it's always my lead character that I have the hardest time with. So he's definitely been the person I've spent the most time with trying to make sure that I'm doing justice to him and making sure that he comes across in the way that I'm intending.
Since you started writing this before COVID, how did that change how you ended up writing, like the restrictions and the government and living more of it?
Right. Well, so the first 5 issues, I had the page-by-page breakdowns done back in probably like 2015, but issue 2 was written in like 2017, and then issue 3 was the first one I wrote during the actual pandemic. So that one didn't really change that much. I think going forward, like issue 4, and I'm in the middle of finishing up issue 5, it's more like making sure people are wearing masks more than what I did before. And then also just there's this scene that I have in issue 5 that I just did where I was having trouble figuring out the logic of why this character did these actions. Like what I had thought of before the pandemic wasn't working. And then I realized I just needed to kind of take inspiration from how officials have had to react to this pandemic to justify this person's actions. And it's actually been helpful.
Yeah, live the experience a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Not that you want to.
Yeah, no.
So how long does it take you to put together an issue?
So the writing, it depends on my schedule. My husband works about 11 to 8 every day. I'm the primary caretaker for our son, who's 3. So I don't normally get to do any writing until the evenings. And that's if my husband gets done with work on time and my son also lets me leave the room. So I maybe get 2 hours at night to write if I'm lucky. And I try to get if I can get 3 pages done in those 2 hours, that's a really good night. But then it's like, if I could do that every day, I'd probably have the issue done in like 2 weeks, but it's usually 2 months to even get a first draft if I'm conscious about trying to sit down every night and amongst whatever crazy is going on. And then Mariana takes, I want to say like 4 to 5 months to do the art because she does all the interior art. So it's usually like 4 to 5 months. Layla takes a very short time with the covers. The covers are usually done within like 2 weeks once we set that ball in motion because we have a set theme for every issue. So it's just really like me telling her what I want the character to be and what it will look like. And then we go through a couple of sketches. And then the lettering can take up to a month, mainly because Carlos is just so in demand. You know, I try to squeeze in amongst his other, bigger clients. So that's like probably 6 months for just the production part of it.
So is this your first comic book though?
This is my first comic book, yeah.
So what do you think about your first foray into the comics world?
Well, it's been interesting because it started a while ago, right? So I did like the class with Meltdown, and then the teacher ended up doing a second class for our group about how to do long form comics. And then I had a publisher actually almost immediately after I finished issue 1, and that didn't work out, unfortunately. But that is why there was such a long break between issue 1 and 2. It was probably like a 2-year break between the thing with the publisher falling apart and then me getting back and having the money to do issue 2. And then it was a matter of, okay, I can't keep affording to take out loans to fund this issue. So how am I going to do this? And it was like, all right, well, I'll do Kickstarters, and I had when I did the Kickstarter last January, I was just in the middle of trying to start cobbling together some sort of childcare for my son, so I wasn't sticking him in front of the TV every time I needed to do any sort of work. And then everything went crazy. So that's why I only get like maybe a couple of hours at night if I'm lucky. Otherwise, I am sticking him in front of the TV to try to keep on top of everything. But issue 3, 4, and 5 have all been within the last year, which is like fast for me
Right.
from what I had before. But I know it's slow when compared to like a normal, you know, if I was a writer on like a regular series, I probably would literally have 2 weeks to write.
And I think the whole COVID thing and that happening in the last year and so actually helps out the story quite a bit, because it's not such a leap anymore. You're reading it and you can imagine this happening.
Yep.
It's not, you're like, oh, you know, and it hits home in a harder way than it would if we hadn't and aren't currently living through this.
Yeah, there's this moment in issue 3. So issue 3, I had the page by page breakdown done earlier, but I wrote the actual issue in March. So that's like right when all the lockdowns were happening. And there's this scene that kind of throws us back to the beginning of the pandemic with Matt and his family. And it was already like heart-wrenching as it was scripting this scene to begin with, but then actually writing it during a pandemic, it felt like something I could actually see happening. And so that made it even more emotional.
Right,
that was a tough scene.
Yeah, because that sense of loss permeates throughout the whole story. Just with the main character, Pamela, and then these other characters, which you briefly get to see and get to know. And, I'm not going to spoil any surprises, but there's a couple shocking things that happen in issue 2, and it just like, it brings you right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I have a lot in each issue, but hopefully it doesn't feel like too much. Hopefully it feels all cohesive and.
No, you want more.
Okay.
It was an easy read. It was a very easy read.
Yeah, when I was going through issue 2, and I went to go to the next page, I'm like, no, that can't be it. I couldn't believe how fast it went.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So the Kickstarter version is like issue 1 and 2. So like for my publisher, issue 1 is unique to them because I decided to do a perfect bound because I already had the 2 issues in the can when I did my first Kickstarter.
Now, where can people buy? Is there an online site where people can purchase the first 2 issues together?
If it's the perfect bound, if people want this, yeah, they can just they could just email me if they want. The Kickstarter has all the different tiers. I've had a couple of people who've purchased since the Kickstarter ended. They just message me and PayPal me what they want. They're obviously a little more money than the ones my publisher puts out. But the publisher versions are through Diamond, and issue 1, I'm hoping has a second print run. I'm waiting to hear, but issue 2 will be in stores in June, and then issue 3 will be in stores in August. And this is what the cover is for issue 3.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's beautiful.
Which is like one of my favorite covers that she's done. It's I think, let's see, where's the page that shows the sketches? So you can kind of see the different versions that she came up with first. She just did one eyeball, and I was like, no. let's have both of those babies coming out. So yeah, and Owen does the color work on the covers, and he just does a really great job with that.
And
who are some of your favorite
really
writers?
Noticeable on the shelf.
Sorry, you guys crossed
sorry.
out.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, who are some of your like inspirations, like some of your favorite writers that you like to read?
For comics or just in general?
Just in general.
So I've been reading this series called Maisie Dobbs lately. It's a British mystery series, and of course I'm completely blanking on the person's name, which is why I'm trying to look her up. But that's like usually what I read a lot is British mystery series. It's not what I watch a lot, but it's what I read a lot. Jacqueline Winspear. And then as far as comics, I've been reading a lot of Kickstarter comics Charlie Stickney, the White Ash series, and he's been like a great mentor to me. My friend Steven just finished his Kickstarter for Monster Matador. And Steven, Ryland, and Jeff Leeds and I have a comic group from when we did our classes together, and we all read each other's work. So whenever each of us finish one of our comic scripts for any of our projects, we send it to each other for notes. So I've gotten to see like every issue of everything that Ryland has done. And he has he's probably got like 7 series he's juggling right now, 4 of which have gone to print. And then Steven has the Monster Matador series, which is like a bunch of different offshoots. So that's all been great in teaching me about comic book writing as well, seeing all these different scripts from my friends.
Sweet.
Nice. Good to have friends in the business.
Yeah.
So this was originally planned as a TV series called Duplicant.
Yes.
And then you changed it to like comic book format. What was it like, maybe like transferring that script? And then do you ever see it maybe going back the other way? Do you think there's any possibility it could be optioned? I think that's like the hot thing for comics right now is like going to TV or to movie.
I mean, I would love if it could get optioned. That would be great, but I don't know the reality of doing something like that. I have an agent still from when I did TV writing, which I'm still trying to do TV writing. So I think he's working on trying to get that out, hopefully. But it was definitely a challenge because when you write in TV, you don't put a lot of description in. It's mainly the dialogue. You're trying not to step on the toes of everyone in the TV world, especially the director. So it's like there's not a whole lot of description in between the patches of dialogue. But in comic book world, depending on your artist and depending on how you personally write, there's no set format that I've found, and you could write as much as you want about each panel. So it's like you're almost taking on all the hats of everything. And with the pilot script, Pamela was literally a 1-scene character. So she wasn't supposed to be a bigger character. And that was the first, I decided to adapt her because the class I took for writing comic books was supposed to be a one-shot issue. Jim Higgins was teaching it as just like write a single issue thing. And so I was like, well, let's do Pamela. She's got this one scene. Let's see what happens with her. And then when I fleshed her out more, I was like, okay, she needs to be a significantly bigger character that continues on through the series. And also in that class, Ryland and I and Jeff, we were all wanted to make our single shot series into actual series, not just like a one shot. So then that's why Jim did the second class, because he's like, none of you are listening to me. This isn't supposed to be a continuing thing. So that's where we did our proposals for our different series in the second class.
I'm glad you expanded Pamela, because in that first issue, I was all on board with Pamela. I really connected to her.
Oh, great.
And then when she gets the realization of what's happening to her, it's devastating.
It is devastating, especially because she's trying to be an attorney. So she really understands the legalities of the situation that she's in. So I think she finds it extra frustrating because of that extra knowledge of how little power she has over the situation. So in that one scene where she's trying to change this guy's mind, it's literally like a last-ditch effort.
Right. And then even later on in the issue too, when the other stuff is happening to her, and she's got the realization that she's been lied to again.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like, she's like, how much should I believe of what I'm hearing? How much do I need to take this to heart? And I think at the very least, she takes it to be, I can't keep living like this. I need a drastic change. And Matt Travers is the only way to make that happen. And luckily for her, he has retained his humanity and hasn't blocked himself off from the public.
No, but you see how much he's been cut off from what's actually going on. Not that it's his fault. It's all been hidden from him. And you could see the pain and tragedy in his face when the realization starts happening.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Like once in issue 2, he starts to realize how deep this goes, then he's just like, what? That's when he starts to wonder if those rumors are really true or not, because he's like, if this is happening, what else is going on that I haven't been told about?
And there's still some plot threads hanging that I can't wait to see, because there's got to be someone involved that's closer to him than we know that hasn't been revealed yet, and I'm waiting for that reveal. I got
might
ideas.
Have to wait a couple of issues.
There might be ideas, but I'm not going to state anything here. People need to buy your book and find out for themselves.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Where did you get the inspiration for your characters, for like individual ones?
You mean as far as like their voices, or just who they end up being?
Like Pamela, for example, when you're writing her and thinking about her reactions and things, are there certain people or scenarios that gave you the inspiration to create her? Or, I mean, like, do you picture yourself in the situation? Or
well, for Ava, I feel like Ava's like me in some ways with her sense of humor. I have a very corny sense of humor. So as far as like Ava's sense of humor, that's me. As far as Pamela goes, she's also another like aspect of my personality, like as far as being fairly earnest, but also someone who's very driven and tries to just, do as much as she can to take care of herself and also take care of others in the meantime. So I'm not sure if there was like any other specific inspiration for her on that, but Matt was inspired by, and of course I'm forgetting this person's name because my memory is crap. Hold on. Let's see if I can figure it out. There was a very specific actor that I had thought of for him that was on House, who was my inspiration.
So Jessi probably knows.
Omar Epps. So Omar Epps was my big inspiration for Matt. And then as far as, all the tragedy that he ends up having happen to him, I mean, I've had a lot of tragedy in my life, and I think that probably informs a lot of that. My uncle was murdered in 2013, and that wasn't that long before I started working on this series. I think I actually was already working on this series when that happened. So that was positive, a big influence on me because it was such a big event. And the cops at the time didn't do anything to investigate it. Once they realized that there was drugs involved, they stopped investigating his murder. And so that's something that we've all had to kind of contend with as a family. That's been hard to deal with. And so I think it's that sense of loss that you never get to really move on from because you never get any sort of closure from it. So I think that's been a big influence.
Yeah.
And we haven't really talked about the character Ava much, but she's there in the background and she's important in all the scenes that she's in.
She is. She's very important. And she's one of Matt's most trusted confidants. And he needs that because he doesn't really have a lot of people that he is close to at this point in his life.
Well, and she's pretty fond of Matt herself.
Yes. Yeah. And her computer keeps trying to thwart anything and everything that she does.
AI is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like a running joke throughout the series with her AI, like trying to throw stuff at her. And she's just like, why are you doing this to me?
But that works on a lot of levels too in the story too, that the AI is such an overwhelming presence. Because
it's especially happening nowadays.
Right. Because even when Pam's on the run, it's all facial recognition and getting her and capturing where she's at and getting a team out to her. And so
and it's like how much do we hear about cameras that are watching our movements everywhere we go 24/7, especially in big cities. It's like our phones obviously are tracking everything we're doing in some way, shape, or form.
Well, just weird that you could type in your address and see your house on Google Maps.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could be talking to your spouse about, like, say, a certain brand of tennis shoe. The next thing you know, you're on your phone and, hey, you're seeing ads for that shoe. That blows my mind every time.
Yeah, exactly. Big Brother's always listening.
And it's funny because like the theme of like everything that we're talking about, like with the surveillance, ultimately like it all kind of comes back to capitalism. And I feel like that's kind of the point of the book, right? Like it's not like the government is doing this to people. It's literally capitalism that's like affecting people's lives and stealing their lives.
Yeah, exactly. And the government in this world is not as involved as it would have been now. Like I almost feel like if things keep going the way they are, this is what's going to happen. The corporations are going to end up taking over.
Uh-huh.
But they have our best interest at heart. Don't worry. Oh, it's good.
Right?
Oh yeah, and and I totally missed because this was a clever little bit on the cover. So when I was looking at it,
yep.
and I just thought that was like
yeah,
I thought it was a clever little artist signature, but it was actually like
it's exactly. It's the barcode.
Yeah,
it's the barcode for the organ that she was given.
Yeah, and I didn't catch that at first, so I was like, oh, that cover worked on a couple levels. Because after I read the story, I looked at the cover again. I'm like, right, there's more to it than I thought.
Well, and the issue 2 cover. So Matt doesn't have his heart replaced, but it's like his heart is breaking because of everything that's happening. So that's why I picked that as the organ and him for the cover for the second book. And then, once we get to issue 3, you'll find out why it's the eyes.
Third eye blind. No,
yeah, issue 2 is amazing, especially, like I said, I don't want to do any spoilers, but like you said, the heart, the whole reasoning behind why he did it originally and why now he's like regretting kind of doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Pulls on the heartstrings.
Well, and it's, part of my inspiration with like, okay, so he's created this tech, but he doesn't really have control over how it's used. It's like that happens so often.
Right.
How often have people created something and then it gets used in a way that they just never intended and never wanted, but guess what? You're under a work for hire and you have no control or say.
He becomes the target because of that, and through no fault of his own.
Yeah,
he's just a public face that people have adopted. That he's the bad guy, and he's not bad.
Yeah, exactly. But he feels that he still is like it weighs heavy on him, and I like that he doesn't just sit there and be like, "Well, this sucks." He's like, "All right, I've got to figure out. I have to be active, and I have to make this better."
Yeah, he's accountable for his actions for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
and he's got heroic moments in issue 2, which work really well.
Oh, thank you. Issue 2 was tricky with him
because he's not successful with them all the time.
Yeah,
but he's still there to do them. He out of his sense of duty and honor.
Exactly. He's very much someone that has this, which is it'll be interesting to see for you guys to see like how this moves him going forward, because he has this very strong sense of duty and honor and everything, but it's like sometimes the world conspires in ways that doesn't always make that sort of thinking easy.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm excited to get this book into more people's hands, so I'm going to be sending people to your Instagram, hopefully.
Yeah, message me. I'm good about keeping up with messaging on Instagram.
So I want to move into the future for a minute.
Yes.
So you said this is 5-issue arc, and you have another arc planned out.
Yes.
And how many issues is that one going to be? Do you know?
It'll be probably 4 to 5. When I originally thought of this series, I was like, I'll do 15 issues. That'll be easy because I didn't know any better. So, I think it'll be 4 to 5 issues for the next arc. It just depends because sometimes, like I'm writing issue 5 now and it's going to be a massive issue. Like I can just tell with the way I'm breaking the pages that they're going to be huge. Like issue 4 was already bigger than normal. And I actually ended up like moving a page out of it into issue 5 because I I was like, I can't afford to make it this big. Like, I just don't have the money to make issue 4 this big. So I'll have to see what happens with issue 5. I'll just write it, and hopefully my next Kickstarter will help me fund enough to finish paying Mariana. Because that's just a juggling act with that stuff.
Right. Well, I don't know. I think in this day and age that we're living in, and the way the story connects, I don't think you're going to have any problem getting any of that funded. It's just so timely and so topical, and the characters are so strong that you can't not relate to them while you're reading it.
Oh, thank you. That was definitely, I always try to make sure that everyone feels like someone you can relate to and you can understand the emotion of whatever it is that they're going through.
Yeah, you could definitely feel the struggle and it's a very, very, very well done.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I was mad for Matt and mad for Pam for what happened to him. I was like, what can I do for them? You know, it's just,
oh, good. That's good though. Thank you.
It's just everything that happens to them is just, it's the wrong thing to good people.
Well, exactly. And unfortunately, it feels like that is happening a lot right now in today's society. Yes. Yeah.
I really liked the way the cliffhangers are.
Oh, good. Thank you. I try to always make every issue, like if issue 2's cliffhanger blew you guys away, you're going to be like, what in the heck is going on in issue 3?
Nice. I'm excited to read that one.
That's probably my most action-packed issue 2 of the 3, which I think you can see why that would be based on what you read as the ending of issue 2.
Yep.
Yeah, we're dancing around it. We're not giving anything away, guys. You gotta read them. It's worth the read. It's worth your money.
Absolutely.
You got to support indie authors and new voices.
So not only can people go and they can buy these books from you, like what issues could people buy from you right now? Just issue 1 so far, correct?
If you're going through the ones that are in comic book stores, which are different from what I put out, those are through previews. So you'd have to contact your local comic book store to get the copies that way. And then if you're going for the Kickstarter versions, which are like the copies on steroids, they come with a lot of extra goodies and everything else. They come with a lot of like fan art that I have. Because I try to find like different artists to commission different fan art pieces on every issue. So that's in every issue.
I feel like I'm like recognizing that one of those looks like Becky Cloonan to me. Can you tell me who some of those artists are? Oh,
so this is Dan Wolf, and this was actually the variant for issue 1 in comic book stores. And then this is Don Nguyen, and he does Pablo the Gorilla. And then this is Anemone, and she illustrated a short comic I did called The Hotel that was in Nightmare Theater Anthology that Clay Adams and David Schrader did. And then this one is by Stephen Prince, and he does Monster Matador. So he did that piece. And then this is Ollie Page Linden. So she did this. She was in my comic book writing class, or sorry, they were in my comic book writing class with me. And then Mariah Terry, this is the variant cover for issue 2, and she does a lot of work for me. She's also illustrating my kids' book. This is Mark Hodge. I'm working on a novel with him, but we're kind of on pause right now because I'm just so overwhelmingly busy. And this is Christy Shin, who did this piece, and she does Demon Bitch, and she does a bunch of other stuff. And then these are like what the various, ways we did issue covers, the different ideas we had of what it should be.
So I have a Duplicant. It's on my pull list, so I'll be getting it from like my comic book store, so they pre-order it. But I'm gonna give you more of my money because I need that copy that has all that the extra goodies and all of that extra art. Like those are one of my favorite things. Like when you do self-publishing, not that you don't get it through Books from Diamond, but
Right.
I feel like I'd almost prefer that one, but I'll get both. I'll keep it on my pull list, and I'm going to get that too.
Well, and the Kickstarter versions, because the first Kickstarter and the second Kickstarter, I hit my stretch goals. So you also get these like huge 5x7 postcards of a lot of different pieces of art as well. But the ones in the stores, they come with a special letter that is not available in the Kickstarter issues. And then, as I said, issue 1 is actually very unique to comic book stores with that cover of Pamela, because I'm not printing that version myself, because the Perfect Bound of 1 and 2 just has the cover of Matt.
And we get that from you on Instagram by messaging you?
Yeah, and then if you look at my Kickstarter, I think for my latest Kickstarter, if you go to bit.ly/ I want to say it's Duplicant 4. I think that will take you right to it. Or if you just go to Kickstarter and look up Duplicant, it'll show you what the different tiers were that I had. Because, yeah, I've had a couple of people that have messaged me, and I just, I'm actually doing my print order this week to get more copies of the Perfect Bound in issue 3, and then to do the printing of issue 4. So if you want it, message me soon.
Absolutely.
So I make sure I have enough.
I think I'll be getting a Perfect Bound, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put a lot
copy.
of the really cool art stuff in here. Yeah, and then the inks are in here too. And so you can see how the little barcode was off on the side. So Owen moved it over when he did the coloring. Because we did this after she had finished the art. We were talking about it, and we were like, yeah, we need a barcode on it.
And it's weird because the cover is great, but when you're in the comic store, it doesn't give away what's inside. It just draws your attention, and it makes you want to find out what's going on.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. Yeah, I'm hoping all the covers definitely catch people's attention. And then let me see if I can pull up the issue 4 one, because that one is like a really good one too. It has Robert on it. Let's see if I can find the cover. There it is. Hopefully it'll show up okay. If it loads. Oh, there we go.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
So it's Robert's brain on fire, falling apart, and he's holding it in his hands.
I can't wait to see now I'm upset I have to wait for the rest of the story. Because you read those first 2, it's like Jason said, they go fast. Like
they do.
When you're involved in a good story, it goes quick.
Oh, good. I definitely want it to feel like it's an easy read, and not you're like, wait, what? I don't understand what's happening. So that's good. I'm glad.
Well, it's a read with weight to it, but it's an easy read.
Right.
It's not fluff. It's good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
We'll start. We've had you here almost an hour, so we'll start wrapping up.
Okay.
First, Jen, did you have anything else you wanted to ask her?
I'm just like curious about, maybe this is like too personal of a question, but do you eat ice cream, and what's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, yes, I do eat ice cream. And there's an ice cream shop down the street from me that makes this cinnamon ice cream that has pieces of graham crackers in it, which is awesome.
Amazing. Love it.
Great.
And they do a special whipped cream on top called Chantilly. I don't really know what the difference is, but it tastes amazing.
Huh.
It's an old school ice cream shop. Like it's super old school. So it's been kind of a bummer that you can't like safely eat in there. So I just go across the park to eat.
I don't know how to follow up an ice cream question.
Sorry.
I'm speechless.
It's valid though too, because there's we like to go out and eat once in a while, and just being able to take your kids someplace where you would hang out. Like we had this one place, and it had like a little booth in the corner, and my kid always called it the Bat Cave, and him and I would go and sit in there and we'd eat.
Oh.
So
well, that's like the ice cream place has this little rocking horse, this like old school rocking horse toy. And the last time I took him in there, which was, just get something and leave immediately, he crawled in it while we were waiting for our ice cream. And he's almost too big for it now because we haven't really been able to go in there for the last year. And the tables are cool because they're chalkboards. And so they used to give you a big thing of chalk and you could just sit there and he could hang out and draw. But, I don't think I'm going to feel safe taking him inside a restaurant until he's vaccinated.
SuperJessi?
Do you feel like you're supported at home pretty good with your writing then?
Yeah, my husband definitely supports what I do. It's just he's got a crazy job. He works in medical software, and so his hours can be somewhat unpredictable. I mean, fortunately, he hasn't had to travel as much this year, but usually he's gone at least 3 months out of the year. And so I'm not looking forward to that happening again because I don't have a super great support system in place for consistent help. And I'm in such a rural area. I used to live in Santa Monica and I was spoiled by urban sitter. When my husband was traveling, when he was first born and I was by myself, Lindley Forrest of Hex Comics, who's amazing, and you guys should read their books and bring them on. She would come and help me out because she knew I was completely by myself. And then I could just hire a sitter if I was really desperate off of urban sitter. But in this area, there ain't nothing like that. It's nothing.
And it's tough. It's tough to trust your kid with people.
Well, exactly. It's tough to trust your kids with people. And at this point with the pandemic, I don't know that, we just signed him up to start preschool in the fall. And we had trouble finding a preschool in this area where they mask. Most of the preschools in this area don't mask and don't distance. So I found the one preschool that does, and I'm hoping they're going to still be doing that in the fall when he goes there for the first time.
Nice. So to wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to tell the audience that's watching and the people that are going to catch us on the rewind about Duplicant that they should know, besides they should go buy this book as soon as they can?
Let's see. I mean, this has definitely been a labor of love. I've definitely had a bunch of roadblocks and things I've had to overcome to get this book out into stores and, just get it finished and onto the Kickstarter. And so the reason this book exists is because of the Kickstarter community and the comic community. If I didn't have the support of both of those awesome communities, this book wouldn't exist. So it's to me, I am just eternally grateful for any and all support that I get because I wouldn't be able to do what I love doing, which is to make comic books.
Nice. Yeah, and it's a great one. It's a home run right out of the gates with this.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm excited. I have a short comic story, a 13-pager that's going to be in Friction, the unseen issue that Kelly Sue DeConnick is working with Friction to get done. So I'm really excited about that. That's set in a frozen apocalypse because, I write such happy stuff. It's set in a frozen apocalypse and follows an artist and her dog as they're trying to survive in this frozen apocalypse.
You're going to have to tag me on Instagram in a message and let me know about this when it's coming out so I can get it.
I think it's going to start drawing soon. I'm hoping.
There's a frozen apocalypse, but is there going to be ice cream?
No, there's not, because there's no sugar.
Ben's having no
But there
part
might be a Twinkie reference, as a nod to what's the movie?
Zombieland?
Thank you. Yes, it's a nod to Zombieland. There's a Twinkie reference.
Nice.
Love Zombieland.
Me too.
Astronaut ice
Bill Murray
cream.
be showing up.
Well, in issue 4, I threw in a reference to Elf because I love Elf.
Nice.
So
that's a favorite in this house too.
It's so good. It's such a good movie.
It is a great movie. I might have actually even put my face on Will Ferrell and Elf for one of my thumbnails, actually.
Nice.
You did. Well, Karla, I think I speak for everyone here. It has been fantastic talking to you, getting some insights in the books and the characters.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. We really enjoyed having you. And I want you to feel comfortable in reaching out anytime that you want to come back and
thank you.
promote anything else. We would love to have you back on.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's awesome.
And I'm sure I could get the guests here back to talk to you one more time. Or several more times if it ever plans out.
Or anybody else that reads your book will probably want to talk to you as well.
Sweet. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone that's your friend and you want to send our way to get their voice heard and out there, we're open to it. Let us know.
Oh, great. Yeah,
let
definitely.
us know a little ahead of time so we can find the book that they're writing so we can read it. Because sometimes these books are hard to find.
My friend Himkar Tak has a book coming out. I want to say it's coming out right in May. It's Redshift from Scout.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Himkar's who hooked me up with Layla, actually, because Layla worked on his book Boy One. And so when I was looking for a cover artist, he helped introduce me to her.
I love Scout Comics. They're a good imprint.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. And Charlie's awesome. Charlie's been such a great mentor to me. And, whenever I have questions about anything comic related, he's always willing to talk to me.
Oh, no, yeah. I just finished Frank on the Farm, too. And that was a crazy book.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they put out a lot of good stuff. And they did Red Xmas, which Clay Adams did. And Clay is my Kickstarter guru. If I didn't have Clay, I would never have been able to do Kickstarters. He's the one that builds all my pages and holds my hand through the whole thing. So he's awesome. And he's a great comic creator in his own right.
Nice. So maybe we can see you at Scout Comics at some point.
Maybe.
But no, congrats on Duplicant.
Thank you.
Fantastic book. Nothing but praise for it. I really loved it. Really connected with
thanks.
everything. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's our show for tonight, guys. I want to thank everyone in the audience for coming on and watching us and hearing us talk with Karla. She's been fantastic. And until next time, keep it casual.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
This is what we